The truth comes out in the end, doesn't it? The mainstream media's panic right now is truly a sight to behold as it stands exposed for suppressing concerns about the president's health and age for years. But I don't think we've seen a more glaring example of that when MSNBC's Chuck Todd was hit with a dose of reality live on air, where he just sounded the loudest alarm bells over Joe Biden's abysmal performance at the debate 2 days ago. But we're not going to let the MSM get away with it that easily, because I need to give you a perspective of just how quickly they've switched while expecting the rest of us to not have noticed their pattern of lies. Just take a look at this incredible clip before I tell you more about it.
Look, we began this conversation before this debate. You know, one of the things was, would either candidate look like the caricature that the other campaign has been trying to paint of him? And at the end of the day, Joe Biden looks like the caricature that conservative media has been painting. And there were no clips tonight, right? This was, you saw it before your eyes. Look, I don't want to just tell you what I think here, Tom. I've been talking to a lot of leaders in the Democratic Party, electeds, coalition leaders. There's a full-on panic about this performance. Not like, oh, this is recoverable. It is more of a, okay, he's got to step aside. There's a lot of that chatter.
Truly, what a time to be alive. Could you have imagined a time when Donald Trump wouldn't be the center of ridicule and criticism from a network like MSNBC after a debate? Well, for the first time with a lack of attention may actually be a good deal for Trump in the end. The 90-minute debate seems to have pulled the elaborate curtain that much of the mainstream media had pulled over Joe Biden's mental and physical acuity for presidency, and now the panic is too great to hide. Nobody wants to look like they've got their head in the sand by defending Joe Biden's incoherent mumbling on stage anymore, because now the matter is much larger than Joe Biden. It's now about the election and presidency after they realize that he's not the fastest horse in the race against Trump. By the way, do subscribe to the channel for more discussions like this, but for anyone that understands that a shift like this in the media doesn't usually happen overnight, I want to show you that left-wing news outlet like MSNBC and CNN have been telling us for years as they shut down skeptics of Biden's age and fitness as simply just conspiracy theories, even going as far as to make the reverse case that it's in fact Donald Trump who's not mentally fit enough to run for office. Just take a look at what Chuck Todd himself was saying earlier this year, claiming that the Robert Hur report, calling Biden an elderly man with a poor memory, is just something that, quote, feeds into a narrative.
I don't know how many different ways people can be yelling into the vacuum to this White House. You got to get them out there more, because the public is drawing their own conclusion.
Yeah.
And then this report feeds a narrative. They may be angry about it. They may think, oh, this Trump appointee put that in there to, scare, just in the same way Clinton people were upset about the words James Comey used.
That's the beauty of the internet. The public is the receipts for everything you've said over the years, and they know when and why you flip narratives. And it just so happens that MSNBC as a network has especially tried to become the wall of defense against criticism of Biden's mental fitness for office. MSNBC wrote last year that, and I quote, "We've seen little to indicate that Biden is suffering any real cognitive decline, neither in his public appearances nor in any behind-the-scenes reporting have we learned that he's forgotten important information, falling asleep in meetings, becoming confused, or growing erratic in his decision-making." And CNN has simply chalked up criticism of Biden's age to right-wing media by saying, and I quote, "For years, and particularly over the last few months, MAGA media has portrayed Biden as a senile, mentally incapable old man who cannot remember what he had for breakfast, let alone run the federal government." Well, that gives you an idea of the buildup that has happened in the years prior to this performance until they were forced to finally drop the act. For example, here's Joy Reid from MSNBC deflecting attention by calling Donald Trump a molting mind in a segment responding to genuine concern about the president's mental faculties.
All of which prompted the Washington Post's Eugene Robinson to raise an important question. Is Trump okay? Thanks to the glimpse into his molting mind from the shark electrocution rant, Robinson noted, "It is irresponsible to obsess over President Biden's tendency to mangle a couple of words in a speech, while Donald Trump is out there sounding detached from reality. But chances are, if you tune into Sinclair, to a Sinclair station or to Fox, you are not going to hear any dose of reality about the presumptive Republican nominee. It should alarm everyone that what you're getting from a supposedly straight news outlet with your traffic and weather together is propaganda to make you think one of these guys is mentally infirm. And it's not the sharks or electrocution guy."
But now that they're no longer able to defend it, we're seeing people like Reid and Chuck Todd flip overnight and echo the same concerns that half the country's had for years. The only problem may be too late at this point in the debate of the week after it is the most important moment of decision for Joe Biden on whether he will continue his presidential run, while it is also the most important time for the media to decide whether they should be more defensive of Joe Biden or more scared of another Trump presidency. The latter will probably require them to sacrifice the former, and that's why you see people like Chuck Todd admit to things like he does here.
This is about as bad of a performance in order to that Biden could have delivered if his goal was to try to sort of calm the waters among Democrats. I mean, look, there was a poll just out earlier this week that showed, a lot of Democrats, it's not just elected Democrats, rank and file Democrats, are both supportive of Biden but think he should not be seeking a second term. I have a feeling we're going to see more polling on this, and we're going to see that number even higher. But the panic level, particularly among elected Democrats who have to share the ballot with him, there's a full-on panic tonight.
And you know what's crazy? There seems to be an internal tussle in the Democratic Party and their donor class at the moment, because here's the deal. The debate 2 days ago has changed everything. There's a cadre of donors and media moguls that are starting to rethink whether Biden can win and want him to drop out. But on the other hand, there's a whole administrative structure and bureaucrats that benefit from a second Joe Biden presidency and are so inextricably tied up in his inner circle over the years and decades that they are not willing to put their jobs and perks at risk by going with a new candidate. And that's the split they've given rise to a lot of confusion right now. Joe Biden has been part of America's politics for more than 50 years at this point, with a lot of plagiarism. From being the youngest senator in America to now being the oldest president in American history, he's the center of an entire team that is completely entrenched and tied up to his name, power, and network. Undoing Biden means disturbing that entire network and maybe ripping out most of the Democrats, end up going with someone new like Gavin Newsom. Perhaps, as they say, if you've been doing something for 50 years and the problem is still not solved, maybe you're the problem. For Joe Biden, accepting that and dropping out of the race is going to take a big hit to the ego. Donald Trump himself has picked on Biden many times, mimicking his public gaffes and his apparent inability to find an exit off the stage. I mean, even Joe Biden's own childhood friend Jay Perini just asked him to drop out of the race if he wants Donald Trump not to win. He wrote an op-ed saying, "Dear Joe, it's time to go." Joe Biden's being pulled in different directions from his own party right now, with a media that has taken its hands off defending him anymore.
You don't walk away from these things. They're going to fight. I mean, you feel a little bit of the fight tonight. They're trying to say, look, he was thrown off a little bit at the beginning. I don't know how you're thrown off, that you're surprised that inflation is the first question, but that's their excuse.
Chuck,
maybe that'll be enough to calm the waters. I don't buy it. And I'll tell you this, Tom, I think there are two public Democrats to be watching for and to see if they say anything. Because I think there are two Democrats who, if they went public with this, I don't know if Joe Biden could stop the freight train. One would be Nancy Pelosi, and the other would be Barack Obama.
And that last name's arguably even more important, because many people have raised eyebrows over Barack Obama's seemingly oversized interaction with the Biden White House, with some even claiming that he's the one calling the shots from behind. Whatever the case may be, it's true that Barack Obama's at least one of the most influential people in America, especially at this moment, despite not holding office. And that's because he holds the largest sway right now to convince Joe Biden to willingly drop out of the race. That one decision has the power to completely change the course of America for the next several years, because it could directly have an impact on how this next decisive election turns out. Biden's debate performance was a mask-off moment in that, because it's impossible to hold up a front for 90 minutes or to edit and manipulate the videos to make them look better to the audience. That means the power to present narratives around Biden's age was finally taken away from the mainstream media in an uncut televised debate.
That was, among the feedback I got from one elected official who said, that's his performance after 5 days at Camp David? That's after rest? So I do think, frankly, the campaign had to come out with some explanation, because I guess the cold is what they got to hang their hat on this.
That's a pretty lame excuse anyway, and not one that anyone's buying, but I guess you need something to say to the cameras. As it stands now, we're entering one of the most decisive next few weeks for America, because some of the most important decisions will have to be made by the Democratic Party and Joe Biden before his nomination is finalized. But let me know what you think in the comments, how you see it all turning out. But I think we'll have to keep our eyes open to the moves the media makes as it tries to shift narratives on behalf of the power corridors in the country.